Hello, I'm Mick Scarsbrook, and in Turkey they call me Mick Amca, which is Uncle Mick. And me and my wife, Trudy, are quite well known in Turkey because of our YouTube channel, and also because of a film that I made years ago about rubbish and the environment. As you can see, I wear an Australian hat, which is a Barmer hat, which is sort of my signature. And if you have a look on our YouTube channel, you'll see that I'm always wearing this. Our YouTube channel is called Mick and Trudy, so take a look at that. You might find a few things interesting on it. So today I'm going to talk about the first time I came to Turkey and the fact that I've actually been living here in Turkey for about 36 years. The first day I arrived here in Turkey was a bit of a culture shock. I'd worked in Greece and Spain before. I worked in Greece as a tourist rep, and I came over to Turkey for a one week holiday to visit an old friend of mine that I'd worked with in Corfu in Greece. On the first day I arrived, I got on a bus from Izmir to Bodrum, and the people on the bus came up to me to say hello and try out their English, which was really nice, but a bit of a culture shock because in Greece and Spain I'd never experienced that. And just outside of the airport, the bus actually had collided with a lorry, not badly damaged, but the bus wasn't going anywhere, and we all had to get off the bus, and another bus came past with 2 seats available, and all the people from the bus said, "You take that seat," and the other seat was taken by a lady with a baby. And I thought, as a foreigner, that was such a lovely thing to do. And that had an immediate effect on me because I'd not experienced that in Greece or Spain or any other country that I'd been to before. The friendliness and helpfulness of the local people. And over the years that I've been here, I still feel the same about Turkish people. They're the warmest and kindest people that I've ever met. So in the first week that I was here, I was offered a job by my friend who was working for Cosmos Holidays at the time as a manager. He gave me a job as a holiday rep, and tourism was in its infancy in those days. And so I've been here ever since, 36 years now. So I soon realised that there were some opportunities here in Turkey for anybody that was a bit entrepreneurial. And I decided to buy a piece of land up in the village. I married a Turkish girl, and we had 2 children together, and we built a lodge. It started off as a villa with a restaurant on the side, but became a boutique hotel. I didn't speak the language very well, but being up in the village, I thought it'd be a good idea to get a book and learn some good grammar and Turkish. So I got a book called Learn Turkish in 90 Hours. 7 years later, I finished the last page. And I also realised that most of the village people, especially the ones that are my age, didn't speak good grammar in Turkish. And in fact, they'd only done 5 years of schooling because in the 1980s, 5 years was the normal school time. Nowadays, of course, they have the same as Europe and the UK. Many of the words that they use up in the village were quite confusing and difficult to learn, and some of the words were completely different to even normal Turkish vocabulary. Like, for instance, a sincap is a squirrel in English, but in the village they called it a tangala, which was a completely different word that no one else in Turkey would understand either. And I remember a little girl coming to me one day and saying, "Annem gök bakıyor istiyor." Well, it meant her mum wanted something. Gök meant sky and bakır is copper. So she wanted the sky copper. It translates that she wanted the blue plastic bucket. But this was their way of speaking. And I soon got used to it, and I think I learnt Turkish a bit quicker than most foreign people being up in the village. And the fact that I used to carry a notebook around with me. And of course, if you want to learn any language, you've got to talk to the people. And I used to do a lot of that, and I still do. In the early 1990s, there wasn't much technology up in the village. In fact, most people in the village didn't even have a phone. But mobile phones slowly came in, of course. And I remember ordering the first computer, and when we plugged it in and got the modem running, it wouldn't actually work in the village because the technology at the central, which was down in the town of Kemer, didn't have the technology to run that sort of thing. But they got a disk for us from Istanbul, and within a week we got the PC running, we got the computer running, which I think was the first PC in the area that was actually running on the internet. There were some comical things happened up in the village. One day, some of the men from the village, who I knew quite well because they'd all helped me building the Mountain Lodge, which was our little boutique hotel at the time. They came to me and they said, we've got a water burst in the village, water pipe. So I went and had a look, and they knew I was an engineer by trade. So I said, well, you just need another piece of pipe that will fit really good, or we go and get a proper fitting from the town. They didn't want to mess about going to the town, so they went and fetched pieces of pipe, and they managed to fit a piece of pipe tightly over the pipe, and it looked quite good, but it wouldn't hold the pressure. It kept blowing off. So what they did was they knocked 2 nails in one side and one in the other, and a little sprinkle of water was coming out from the nails, which I thought was amusing, but they were quite happy with that. And it just shows that, you know, we always strive for perfection as foreigners, but the pipe is actually still like that today, and probably 30 years has passed. When people started using modern technology up in the village, they weren't quite ready for it. I remember one of our neighbours bought was a front-loading washing machine. Obviously, they hadn't got room for it in their small house, so they put it outside. And it wasn't piped into the water system. What they'd done is they put a bucket on top of it with a pipe to the inlet, and they were filling the bucket up from the stream water as the washing machine was running, and the discharge water was going back into the stream. But the villagers showed me a lot of things that we'd forgotten in our culture. They were making their own cheese, their own yogurt, their own butter, and also soap. And I can remember making some yogurt myself by just getting the boiled milk from a cow, straight from a cow, and then putting some mayo in it, and within a few hours, wrapped up, it becomes a whole pan of yogurt, which is amazing. And the same with soap. I remember them making soap out of olive oil mixed with bauxite, and then it sets in a tray, and then they would cut it up with a knife, and it was really good soap, and often they would give us pieces of this soap to use. Although technology has come to Turkey a bit late, now I think the technology in Turkey is actually surpassing many other countries, including the UK. For instance, mobile phone signal you can get anywhere now, even on the top of the mountains here. When I go back to the UK, the village where we live in Dorset doesn't have a signal at all. And you've only got to look at things like the high-speed train in the UK. We've been pondering over one for 20 years, and they still haven't finished the construction of it, and it's only 100 miles of track. And yet, here in Turkey, they completed 300 miles of track 8 years ago, and they've had a high-speed train from Ankara to Istanbul since then. And there are plans here, within the next few years, they will have 6,000 miles of high-speed track going all over Turkey, intercity. Also, it's easy to fly in Turkey. There's airports in nearly every city here, and it's not expensive to fly. You can get from any city to any other city via Istanbul. The name they gave me, Mick Amca, Uncle Mick, came from a video which I did, an environmental video, talking about the rubbish that Turkish people were throwing on the beaches, in the rivers, and in the roadside, which I got quite angry about. And because I'd done the video in Turkish, it carried a lot more weight and it became a viral video, and it got onto the national channels. And it was the national channels that gave me the name Mick Amca, Uncle Mick. The video, which was called Türkiye'ye bir cennet, it's only a few minutes long, which means Turkey is a paradise, is still used today to show environmental awareness to the kids in the schools and colleges. I also got to do a few speeches in universities on the environment, and I was also invited to talk at the International Summit in Istanbul, which was hosted by the council, the Istanbul Council. Not many of the Turkish villagers, even the youngsters, knew much about the wildlife that was up in the mountains. And often you would find dead snakes that had been killed by the villagers because they're not aware of whether the snakes are poisonous or what type of snakes they are. So I studied a little bit about this, and I gave the villagers a day's pay, that was about £5 at that time, if they bought me the snakes or any other reptile or animal alive to me. And what I did with them is put them in a vivarium, studied them for a few days, and then released them back in the wild away from the village. And one day, the two lads who had already bought me a couple of snakes in the past, they bought me a little sack and they handed it to me, and I looked inside and put my hand in and pulled out what was a beautiful full-grown chameleon. And I said, wow, where did you get this from? And they'd gone, because they weren't really sure what the animal was. So I explained to them and showed them that they're actually harmless. And I suppose I gained quite a lot of respect from the villagers up in Yaka village, because if ever anyone got a snake or anything in their house, I would go and get it out for them. I'm still in touch with some of the people up in the mountains, and they've become my lifetime friends. So thanks for listening to a few of my stories. I hope you found them interesting. Please have a look at our channel and subscribe. Thanks for watching.